Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what's going on. They've got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chatty, and this is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, and today I'm going to be chatting away madly all about my stats. So yes, if you are a book stat lover, then you are in the right place. If you're not, maybe think about clicking a different video. Or if you try it and see if you enjoy a good stat. So this is everything I read in February. So we're going to go through all the books I read. So I start off by talking through what my TBR was and whether or not I achieved it. And then I start talking about all the books that I did read and breaking them down into a certain amount of stats. And we end with my least favourite and my favourite book of the month. So get yourself a mug of something nice and enjoy a chat about stats. So that is a good cup of tea right there. So on this channel, I do not edit my videos. I let the camera roll and then I just post what comes out. So it could be chaos, it could be fine, we will find out. But it's one shot and there is no editing. Clink, 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 clink. Cheers. So this is my February TBR. I have my handy dandy notebook because I can't remember everything. So we have Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb, and that was for the theme card Royalty. We then have Augustown by Kay Miller, and that was for the book box pick, and that was Shelter Box. Then we had a prompt that was a mouse. That's a book that is less than 301 pages, and I chose Binti by Nadia Corafor. We then had another theme card. This was a person on the front cover, and I chose Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. We then had a lucky dip, and I still cannot to this day believe how lucky this was. I got The Prey of Gods by Nikki Drayden. And then we had a lucky ladder, and I got a new to me author, or an author I wanted to read more from. I wanted to choose a new author that I hadn't read from before, and that is Andrea Davies Pickney and The Red Pencil. So, did I read these? Dragon Keeper. I did manage to read. First book in the Rainwild Chronicles for the Realm of the Elderlings read-along, hosted by Anita Garde, and I got that read. So, whoop whoop, one down. Augustown, I read it. Yay! That was one of my BLACKATHON prompts. Binti, buddy read with Courtney from Tangible Reads, and I read that one. I did not let Courtney down. We read that, which really should be able to because it was a very tiny book. Amari and the Great Game. I read that one. Woohoo! Another BLACKATHON prompt. Prey of Gods, also another BLACKATHON prompt. I read that one. Yay! And finally, The Red Pencil, final BLACKATHON prompt. And I read that one too. I read all of my TBR, which means I get to pull out a reward that will come into effect when I do my TBR in April. So there's not many rewards. There are 4. There's 4 in here. I can't remember what they all are. So we're getting a bit sparse. So I might do something about that, and we could do like a reward suggestion idea or reuse them. Oh, okay. So my reward is to read a book with a trope you love. And that was from Jessie in the Shelf Space Discord. I think that's Jessie the Sleepy Koala. I've just put Jessie from Shelf Space, but I'm pretty sure it's Jessie the Sleepy Koala. Yes, because Jess is Jess. So yes, this is Jessie the Sleepy Koala. Thank you, Jessie. So when I do my April game, I will have the opportunity, if I want to swap out one of the books I don't want to read and swap it in for a book that has a trope I really like to read about. So that'll be rather nice. Thank you very much. Okay, I did actually, as well as reading these 6 books, I did read a few other ones as well. So I'm just going to add those in to the mix. So the other books are the Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons. This was another book I wanted to read because it was BLACKATHON. Squeezing that in there. I then read The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson because I was doing a little project reading challenge thing with that one, and also I was supposed to have read it in January and I didn't. I then have 2 carryovers for January. One is a placeholder because I read it as an audiobook from my library, so that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller, And I also have Shadow of the Gods, the first in the Blood Swan Saga by John Gwynne. So that makes a total of 11 books. Hold on. No, that is 10 to make it 11, because I did read 11. I'm also adding in the second book in the Binti series, which is Binti Home. So I have the bind up of all the Binti books plus a short story in this particular copy. So I read Binti and Binti Home. That's the sound effects of me sliding the books back in. So there we go. There's my books I read. So the Shadow of the Gods I didn't completely finish at the end of the month. I read it a few days into February as well. But I'm going to talk about it in this wrap up. So we're going to talk about the sizes first. So the sizes of the book, just kind of give you a better idea of like how much that was, and because I find it interesting and I haven't done this one. Look, here we go. Look, I've made the notes and I've just put equals and left it blank because I'm an idiot. So I'm just going to quickly work out the sizes. Okay, we have it sorted. So I read 2 ant-sized books, which are books under 151 pages. So that is Binti and Binti Home. I read 3 mouse-sized books. So that is the Red Pencil, Augustown, and the Passing Playbook. Red Pencil technically has more pages. So mouse is anything that's below 301 and above 150. No, below 300 and above 151. Sorry. Red Pencil has got more pages, but it is a novel in verse. So you will have a page where, you know, it's laid out like that. So there's not a whole amount of writing going on because it's a novel in verse. So I will always class it as a mouse. I'm just going to swap it with these. So I then read 2 goat books. So the size of a goat is from 301 to 400 pages. So that is the Prey of Gods and Amari and the Night Brothers. Prey of Gods, I'm just checking. I'm pretty sure it was a goat and not a cow. Yeah. It is. I then read 3 cow-sized books, which I'm struggling to get out with one hand. Oh, tiny handspans. Okay, we're in. And that is The Girl Who Speaks Bear. Know My Name is a guess, because I don't know how many pages it is, because I can't check, because I don't have the physical copy. And if I look on my phone, it means I would stop recording. And I don't want to do that because we're 7 minutes in and I don't want to restart. So we're guessing that it's a cow. It felt like a cow when I was reading it, which sounds so weird to say. So a cow is 401 to 500 pages, and Shadow of the Gods is cow-sized. But for clarification, for people that like to definitely know, I will put in the description box exactly what animal size Know My Name falls under. Oh, I can't do this. Okay, and finally I read 1 elephant. Any guesses on what that could possibly be? Of course it's Robin Hobb. She doesn't really do smaller than an elephant usually. So yes, Dragon Keeper was elephant sized, which is 501 to 700 pages. So there we go, a nice array of animals. It's a nice mix of sizes. I quite enjoy that. So now we're going to look at the age range. So we have 7 adult books, 1 YA and 3 middle grade. Now one of my goals is to read, have a third of what I'm reading middle grade. It just fell short. So I think if I'd read 1 more book, that would have worked out statistically. But I think I worked out the percentage, and I think it worked out like 27 something %, which is not a third. So yeah, it's under. So let me just have a little look-see. Right, so my adult books, there they all are. Let's shove them together a bit more. So my adult books are Binti and Binti Home, Augustown, Prey of Gods, Know My Name, Shadow of the Gods, and Dragon Keeper. The YA book I read was The Passing Playbook. And the 3 middle grades are Amari and the Great Game, The Girl Who Speaks Bear, and The Red Pencil. So now looking at how I'm doing this series, a great month for finishing off and progressing with series because I started 3. So I started the Rainwild Chronicles, which is the 4th series in the Realm of the Eldlings. So technically it is progressing because I'm working my way through the whole of the Realm of the Eldlings, but I class them as being finished when I finish each like little trilogy section. So I also need to class it as starting. Shadow of the Gods, again, technically it's progressing because I wanted to reread this before reading the 2nd book. But it's starting a series. Binti definitely is starting a series. I started Binti, but I also progressed with Binti because I read Binti Home. And I am now up to date with Amari. So the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations, I'm now up to date with. Finished this book, and there are no more books out. Hoping there's a 3rd one due in September, because if not, I'm rioting, because we need that 3rd book. We need that. Next is genres, and unsurprisingly, I read the most fantasy this month because it's my favourite. So I have 4 fantasy books: The Girl Who Speaks Bear, Amari and the Great Game, Shadows of the Gods, and Dragon Keeper. I then read 3 sci-fi. Now, Prey of Gods is a crossover sci-fi fantasy because there are deities in here and powers, but it is predominantly, I'd say there's stronger percentages in the sci-fi aspect of it because of the AIs and the kind of the technology. It just feels more sci-fi than fantasy, but it is a genre crossover, which is fun. And also Binti is sci-fi, so and Binti Home, so I read 3 sci-fi, and then I read 2. Now I think I'm confusing myself slightly here. Just gonna work out what I'm on about. Okay, I listed all the genres that they officially dwell in, so I wrote too many books down, so that's fine. But so yeah, we have another genre crossover. So I think Augustown is historical and literary fiction. Never exactly sure the criteria for something to be classed as literary fiction, but it says in stuff when you read about Augustown, literary fiction. So therefore someone has already classed it, so I don't need to worry about it. But I'm personally classing it as historical. So I read 2 historical fiction. Both modern historical fiction. The red pencil is in the noughties, which is 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And Augustown is the 80s, which still feels modern. I think anything this side of the 60s just feels modern still, but modern historical fiction. But they're both historical fiction, so there we go. Stop waffling. And then we have 1 contemporary and 1 memoir. What? So that was really fun. I read a nice mixture. I still got all of my fantasy kicks. Definitely by the end of the month, I was starting to feel like I was missing my fantasy. I was like, throw me back in. Give me my fantasy. But it is fun to dabble across other genres. So it's a good month. Good month, I felt. Okay, we're going to move on to format. So, yeah, it's just a case of pulling out 3. So, diddly-dee, and diddly-dee. Right, so I read 7 novels 7 novels. Girl Who Speaks Bear, Amari and the Great Game, Shadow of the Gods, Dragon Keeper, Prey of Gods, Augustown and the Passing Playbook. I read 2 novellas, Binti and Binti Home. I read 1 novel in verse, which is The Red Pencil, and 1 audiobook, which is Know My Name. I really should know the name of the book, shouldn't I? Terrible. Okay, what are we doing next? So I own 7 of these books. The full fantasy that I've named together several times, I'm not going to do it again. Prey of Gods, Augustown, Binti and Binti Home. So that's actually 8. I own 8 of these books. And 3 I got from the library. So that's the Red Pencil, Passing Playbook and Know My Name. All these books were new reads to me, apart from The Shadow of the Gods. So The Shadow of the Gods, as I already said, was a reread. So that's 1 reread and 10 new reads. We then are going to look at Global Majority. And thank goodness, because quite frankly, if I did not hit my target of reading half global majority in this month when it's BLACKATHON, there is just no hope really for me at all. So I have 8 out of the 11 books are all global majority. Woohoo! And we have 3 white Eurocentric books, which is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb, and The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson. So that means we have Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston, The Prey of Gods by Nikki Drayden, Augustown by Kay Miller, Binti and Binti Home by Nadia Corafor, The Red Pencil by Andrea Davis Pickney, Know My Name by Chanel Miller, and The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons, all of global majority. So I definitely hit well over. I think I'm like just under 3/4. Yeah, so what we got there? That's the 6, 7, 8 and 3. So yeah, definitely over a third, but not quite 3/4, I think. So that's great. So I'm really, really happy with that. But like I said, quite frankly, if I hadn't done that during BLACKATHON, we would need words. Serious words. I can't squeeze them in. Yes, done. Amazing. Okay, so I'm now going to talk about diverse protagonists. So when I'm talking about global majority books, I'm talking about the author. When I'm talking about the diverse protagonist, I'm talking about the main character or one of the main characters having some sort of, whether they are from the LGBT community, whether they are from the global majority, whether they are neurodivergent or have a physical disability. So all of those things where you don't usually get such a broad representation, where you don't usually see yourself in a story. I'm wanting to read books where people will be able to see themselves in the story. There are some of the books where you have kind of like side characters, and this is kind of like side characters, like background characters, where they would hit one of those, but I'm not counting those. So I'm only counting it if they're like a main protagonist. So in terms of it as a whole, I'm just going to count them all up so it's not too confusing. Yeah, so looking as a whole, 9 out of the 11 have a diverse protagonist. And I'm being very like, what's the word? Well, it's very explicit that they're diverse, rather than you could be more nuanced and explore sort of like grief in terms of like the neurodivergence and the feeling like you don't fit in, but without having a label as such. But I'm not doing that. I am very much kind of looking at where it's more explicitly saying we are representing this community. So in terms of the LGBTQ plus community, there were 3 books. So that is Dragon Keeper, The Passing Playbook, and The Prey of Gods. All had a LGBTQ main character within the story. In terms of disabilities, there were 2. So in the Red Pencil and also in Dragon Keeper, there were both characters with sort of like physical disabilities within there represented. In terms of mental health and grief, there were 4 books where I felt this was kind of a main theme. So there might be some other ones where it touched on it, but this is one where it was very clearly explored within the book. And that is in the Red Pencil, Binti, Binti Home, and Know My Name. There were 7 books with Black characters and 1 book with Asian representation. So there we go. Pretty successful month for all of that. So we're now going to move on. No, we're not. We're going to do Read What You Own first. So Read What You Own, pretty good again. I read 6 books. So that is Amari and the Great Game, The Prey of Gods, Augustown, Binti and Binti Home. These three handily from the library, they don't count. That's a reread, doesn't count. Dragon Keeper I earned after I made this commitment, so that one doesn't count, but The Girl Who Speaks Bear does count. So I have recorded them all in my notebook here. I particularly enjoyed my drawings for Binti, if you know, you know. And then flip over the page, which I can't do. So here we go. We end on Amari and the Great Game. I've now read 13 books into the Read What You Won't Challenge. My aim is 24, so I'm doing okay. And I have got my TBR down. We got back into the 60s, so we're on 164. And I've got over 10 books, which means I can bank a book to buy. And I've also means I've got 2 books that I've managed to move into my under the bed where I can earn them. So if you're not sure what all this is about, I will link my updated Read What You Won't Challenge video where I talk about a confession, so that makes more sense. So Rainbow Grey, The Eye of the Storm, and Onyeka and The Rise of the Rebels are now in the draw for me to earn with healthy points. So all in all, pretty damn good. Okay, we're now at that point where I talk about my least favourite. Now this month is very different to last month. Last month there was a book that was definitely my least favourite just because I didn't enjoy it as much and the things that annoyed me. This month, these collection of beauties were indeed beauteous. So what it comes down to is my personal taste. So this by no means means that it's a bad book. It just means that it's not the book that called to me. It's not a book that I will reread, whereas I feel I would reread the rest of them. I don't feel I would reread this one just because it's not really a me book, but I'm really glad I read it and I enjoyed my time reading it and found it really interesting. And that is Augustown by Kay Miller. It's just a different genre for me. It's literary fiction. It's not usually my go-to. I appreciated it. I liked reading it, but it's one of those books that I'll kind of read now and then. It's not something I crave and want. I like to have much more of an emotional connection to my characters and really kind of know them know all of their like intricacies is the wrong word. Intimately feels too intimate. I like to know them really well, and all of the little things that make them tick and like follow them through their journeys and life. And we just got like small tastes of different people throughout Augustown, because that's what the book wanted to do, and that was great. But that's just why it didn't quite click as well with me, and I didn't have as much fun with it as I did of the rest of them that I read. Oh my goodness! Now, they were so good. Like the books I read was so good. I just had a brilliant time with them, and there's so many I can't wait to read more from those authors. It was just such a fantastic reading month. But there are 2 that call to me stronger than the others, and they're 2 different ones. So first of all, Amari and the Night Brothers. Not the Night Brothers. Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston, which is a middle grade fantasy. So I had high expectations for this because of how much I loved Amari and was like, the hype is real, it's amazing, everyone should read this book. And then I read Amari and the Great Game and he stuck the landing. It's so hard, I think, to manage to have the second novel being as good as the first and bringing you everything it wanted. But you can tell he has got a series story and he's not just like, right, what could happen next to these characters? It's thought out. We got to be in the places that we loved and really enjoyed again. We got to get a deeper idea of the world and other kind of aspects to it. We had different friendships forming. We had friendships continuing. We had different situations for our protagonists to go through. Amari had to go through a lot. There's a lot riding on her shoulders. We got to learn more things that we didn't know before, and it was just brilliant. And then you have the end, and you're like, a third book, please. But also you have this absolutely wonderful world. So there's so much like creativity and imagination in the world building and all that entails, but also you have these characters that you just fall in love. I love Amari. I absolutely love her. I love Elsie. I think she's called Elsie. The her friend. And their relationship, and like it was really tested in this book, and there were a lot of things that you had to do and explore, and it was so, it felt so truthful and so good. There were moments where it's like, oh, friends. It was really lovely. So yeah, Amari, love Amari. And the second one was a really hard book to read at points. I definitely had to pause it halfway through, and then come back to it. And that's Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I'm just using this as a placeholder because I don't have the book, like I said, but I will. I absolutely will be getting hold of a physical copy of that book. And I can't wait to get it and tab it. It was just incredible. So moving, and dealt with so much heavy stuff. But also, she's very creative and artistic, and that really shines through in her work. Like her speeches and her the power she has is incredible. And you find out in here that she's also done stand-up comedy, and she's just such an amazing person. And but the way she writes as well, it's really beautiful. It's very visual, and she'll kind of give you all these like picture images of things. And she really, like the subject matter she was dealing with about how victims are treated in rape cases. It's so important to read, so important to hear. And as a society, it's almost like we are judging victims for being victims. And people's immediate reaction was, well, no, I can't believe that as someone, so therefore you must be lying for some reason. And then when you hear everything that they go through, it's like, why on earth would anyone put themselves through this and make this up? Like, it's shocking, like how much scrutiny her and her family kind of like had to go through within the court system, and just how not only are you dealing with surviving an absolutely horrific thing and all of the mental jeopardy that you are already in. Like, you can't just go and like start making yourself better. You're still like having to relive it through all of the court systems and justify yourself as to why you should not be treated like this and why this is not your fault. And it was so important to read. And you don't get the statement that she is famous for until the very end, but I did stop when she got to that part of the story. I paused the book and I went and found the statement and I read the statement. And I definitely am I also read a few of the newspaper articles as well, and it's just kind of jarring that you're reading this and you're so like, you feel so closely connected with her, and then you kind of remember that this is definitely real, this happened to her, and then you then look at it through the news and you feel kind of slightly detached from it when you're reading about it, and it's like, God, this happened, this has all happened to her, and they're talking about her in this, and it really just is so well done, and just it makes you think a lot about what a human life is worth, what people are worth. She's so eloquent and empathetic and strong and courageous, and it's just so beautifully done. I cannot put into words how amazing or beautifully done this book is. I highly recommend it to absolutely everyone. It's hard, like I said, it's hard to read because of the subject matter, but it's not like graphic and explicit in that sense until she needs to be. But there's a lot of being kind to yourself and how she was trying to be kind to herself, and there's a lot of like finding the joys in life. Like, she's constantly having to like pick herself up and find the silver linings and find the nice things to keep her, in order to keep herself going, because if she didn't do that, she would just sink into a mire. And it's incredible. I highly recommend. So, Know My Name, Amari and the Great Game, read. Wonderful reading month. I had a great time. So yeah, if you're interested in knowing sort of like more of my thoughts about these books, I will link my February wrap-ups. I did week 1 and 2 and then week 3 and 4 for you to have a little look at. And yeah, hopefully see you in another video. If you have any thoughts on these, then please do get chatty in the comments. You know I love a chat. And if you enjoyed, give it a little like, If you like the vibe and you haven't already subscribed, then give that little click so you will be sort of more informed when I'm dropping any other videos. And most importantly, happy reading, everyone. I hope you have an excellent reading month in March. Please let me know what you're intending to read. Bye.